Okay, so just a spoiler, not a spoiler alert, but tomorrow night's stuff is there's a shas stuff like no other, It's wow, it's a shas stuff, but it's quite an interesting daf. Today is not today's is not as action packed as tomorrow's will be. So we were holding in. Well, we did the Mishnah, right? We finished the Mishnah.
Yes, we're up to the Gemara.
So, and the Mishnah basically goes through 4 different cases of stam nedarim. So he said if somebody makes a stam neder, right? So we don't know which way he meant. He could have been meaning that it's avodah zara, in which case it's not a neder, and he could have meant that it was a carbon, in which case it is a neder. So we don't know which way to go. So we were machmer, right? So, and then at the end we had a machlokes whether stam truma and Yehuda or in Galil, meaning it's based on where and when you what your attitude would be towards the thing. Meaning in Galil they didn't know from giving kohanim presents. So when a guy says he's making a heiress, so it has to be going to the Beis Hamikdash. But if he did it in Yerushalayim and Yehuda, so then it would be different. Okay, we'll get back to that. Either way, but the main thing we come out from the Mishnah is that a stam neder, we're machmer. We don't know which way the guy meant to go with it, we're machmer. So Gemara asks, Vatanan, Safek naziris lahakol. We learn that a Safek nazir we go lahakol. Right? We're learning in the Mishnah that stam naziris is l'chumra, and then we have a Mishnah that says stam naziris is to be mekel. So Rav zeira like kasha harav Eliezer harabanon. It's a Machlokes Tanaim. One's Rav Eliezer, one's Rabbanon. The Tanya, we learned hamaktish chayosayu behemtoi. If somebody's maktish his animals, meaning his wild animals, and his how do you touch it? Behema and chaya?
Domestic animals? Domestic
and wild. Yeah. Okay. So basically, that should include all of his animals. So then there's hektish as a koi. He also, meaning this is not talking about nedarim. This is making something hektish. So if he made all his animals hektish, both wild and domesticated, that means he also is makdish a koi. Some pronounce it as kvi, right? So it's some sort of, nobody knows exactly what it is. It's a suffix whether it's a chaya, it's a suffix whether it's a behema. Right, it's some sort of deer / goat / it's missing an identity, right? So we'll stop it there, right? So it doesn't identify with anything. So, but it's either a chaya or a behema. So really, as it says, if you made everything hektish, so then it's koi is included. I mean, that's the Rabbanon. No, he didn't. When somebody's making something hektish, he's only making the things that are vadai included. Right? But if it's not vadai included, then it's not going to become hektish. So what does this have to do with us? So the one that holds that your mammon works for a Safek, so your body also will. Right, so by hektish, if you're saying that anything that's a Safek is included in your hektish, so then your body, which is what you're doing when you're a nazir, right? When you're a nazir, you're making your body into some sort of hektish, because you're not going to have wine, you're not going to have meat, and you're not going to become Tamei. So a body would also go with a Safek. And Rabbi Eliezer that says that his money, the koi or kvi, is not going to become hektish because you're only making things hektish at Rabadai. So then gufei nami, on Tamar Aleph now, gufei nami, kol shekain loy ma'al l'sfeika. So his guf also, it's a kol shekain that it will not work as a suffix. So basically, again, what we're learning out from Kodshim, we're learning out from Kodshim is that we have a Machlokes Tanaim whether a Safek is included. So, and we're saying that the same way that there's a Safek, there's a Machlokes whether a Safek is included when it deals with your belongings, which animals are, you can have the same Safek when it deals with a person's body by making himself a nazir. The Eliezer is going to hold it doesn't, and the Chum are going to hold it does.
So he's saying the nazir is the same Safek as a kfi. Because you can't tell me nazir is a good thing if he has to bring a carbon chatas after. Then you cannot tell me it's a great thing. Can't. What you call it, it can't be a great thing if he has to bring a carbon chatas.
For what? I don't understand why is it. This is
a nazir brings a carbon chatas. Yeah. So how could you say it's a good thing?
I don't know why does it have to be good or bad? I don't.
You're saying he made himself hegdish. It's not hegdish. He did an aveira.
Oh, you mean, yeah. No, I know, you're right. Oh, yeah. 100%. He's not making himself hegdish. But it's the equivalent of saying whatever is krum in him.
He's krum. He brings a chatas. I don't care what you want to say about the guy. The guy did an aveira. Otherwise, he would not be chayav a chatas.
No, that's true, but we're just saying in the concept, what did he mean to do when it's a Safek?
I don't know what who knows and who cares what he meant to do? Who cares?
We care because we care because the Gemara cares. We're trying to figure out.
You care because you're just a caring individual.
No, I'm not a caring individual, but we care because the Gemara is trying to figure out what he means.
He learned Archot Tzadikim, so he's not a tzaikin. What do you call it? No, I'm just saying we're just trying to compare, because how do you compare Kodshim to a guy making himself into a nazir? What does one have to do with the other? It's just a matter of what's in his mind.
I agree with you.
No, so it's just saying that the main point that the Gemara is saying is that the mindset for making your money into hektish is the same mindset about making yourself into whatever. Okay, let's not call it hektish. Whatever it is that you want to make yourself into, the question is do you have that in mind with the Safek or not? Okay, so that's what we're saying. Right now we're saying it's a Machlokes Tanaim.
Could this Machlokes Tanaim be similar to the Machlokes of Bein Hashmashos? Whether it's a Safek Laila, Safek Yoim, or it's outside of Yoim and Laila?
I don't know. Is that the same thing? That's by itself a Safek.
That's what's here.
Now here with the Safek,
it's a Safek. The kvi is a Safek.
Yeah, but the question is, what was this? I mean, when you think about it, the guy said every animal of his wild ones and his domesticated ones are hektish. So a kvi should be included. It's either whichever one it is.
If you hold a kvi as a Safek Chai or Safek Behema, yeah. Rabbi Eliezer could hold, but it's not a Chai or a Behema. It's somewhere in between. So Mamela doesn't rise to the Safek.
I don't know if that's the Machlokes. The Machlokes is just when are we including a Safek here or not? Is a Safek included in what his intentions were? Yeah. Okay, whatever it is. So Amalei Abaya. So Abaya asked the Kasha on Reb Zeira. So again, Reb Zeira is saying that we have a stira, whether a Safek nadir is considered a Safek, and you were trying to say it's a Machlokes Tanaim. So Amalei Abaya, but Mayo came to what's Reb Zeira saying with Safek nazirus lahakol k'Reb Eliezer. So we're saying that the one who holds that a Safek nazir is a mekel, and that goes like Reb Eliezer. But the problem is, aim a siefa. At the end of that Mishnah in Tyrus, it says Safek bechor. You could have you have different types. There's basically three different types of bechor. There's a human bechor, there's an animal bechor, and then there's a what do you call it? Chamor. Bechor of a chamor, pigeon pet of chamor, which is obviously the least common, right? So you have a Safek bechorus, echad bechore adam. Doesn't make a difference whether we're talking about it's a Safek of a bechor adam, echad bechore behema, bein Tamei or bein tahira, and it doesn't make a difference whether it's a bechor of a behema, whether it's Tamei or tahira. When we say Tamei, we're talking about a donkey because the other behema is Tamei is not an issue. So what's the din? The If you want to take money out of your friend, you have to bring a proof. So who's trying to get this bechor? The kohen, right? The kohen's trying to get the bechor. That means he has to prove that this is a legitimate bechor. Right? It's up to the kohen. B'tani Allah, we learn that Vasur and Begiza Avodah, but even though the kohen has to prove it in order for him to take possession of the animal or the kid, or you have to be paid with, with the five coins, but it's still usher to shave the animal, to not shave. What do you call it? Giza Avodah? To shear it, to take off the wool. Shear, to shear the wool, and you can't work them because they have some sort of kedusha. So now, isn't this a Safek? So according to Reb Zeira, that he's trying to say that Rabbi Eliezer holds that it's a Safek and it wouldn't become Kaddish. Here you see that a Safek does become Kaddish, even though we're not giving it to the kohen, but you can't use the wool and you can't use the animal either. So therefore you see that there is a kedusha to a Safek. Right? So Amrlei, the teretz is Pashat. Amrlei, Amaika Madamas Kedusha Haba Me'eleh, the Kedusha Haba V'idei Adam. You can't compare a Kedusha that came by itself to a Kedusha that was man-made. Right? The bechor is a Kedusha. If this is animal or this kid, whatever, the donkey is taka the firstborn, then it's usher, having nothing to do with the humans can jump up and down and scream and yell all they want. Bottom line is this thing, it's a Safek, but if it's taka a bechor, so then it's usher. But here, the kedusha is the guy's making his animals into hektish. So then it's going to be dependent on what was his intention when he said that he's making these animals into hektish. Right? It seems to be a pashat and nafkamina. Now, what's a Safek bechor? So the classic case of a Safek bechor is that there's twins, and you don't know which one came out first, the boy or the girl. If it's the boy or a girl, or it's two boys, you don't know which came out first. Nowadays, the only time that that we have a Safek bechor is if, unfortunately, the woman has a miscarriage with her first pregnancy. That's if she has a miscarriage with her first pregnancy, then we don't know if it was viable and how old it was, etc., etc. So a lot of times what we'll do is we will have you'll make the pidyon haben without a bracha, because again, it's a Safek, right? I had a guy last week a rebbe or something, he had a student whose parents have no recollection if they made him a pidyon haben or not. Not too religious, and they have he came home and he said no recollection if he made him a pidyon haben. So I don't know what to do with that.
But you go something about
You got to try and do some research and see.
Are you going to go something about the
Yeah, but the question is, do they need to do a pidyon?
Don't ask Aaron or Ravi. You know what the old past.
Well, no, there's the story of the Vilna Gaon.
Amara, you just to make a parnasa. What's your problem?
I didn't say you're wrong. I said we know what you would pass. That's all.
What are you talking about? The Vilna Gaon that went around being paid himself always?
Until he met a Rappaport.
Right. He didn't continue after meeting a Rappaport?
That's the story.
I hear. All right, so he was...
That's how the Maisa goes, that he didn't continue after that.
I thought, but that the Safek was he was Safek about the Kohanim.
He made a bracha every time?
I don't think
I think he was just Poda. I think he was just Poda. Just gave him 5 shkalim.
Naftali, that's literally kash off a Maisa, you know what I mean?
He lit a candle though. For every coin he met, he lit a candle. Yeah. Anyway, okay, so that's the case of a Safek bechor. Fine. So there's no kash on Reb Zeira, because you can't compare a kedusha, a Safek of a kedusha that comes automatic like a bechor, to a Safek kedusha that a person makes the kedusha. Eli kasha ha kasha. If you want to ask a kasha on Reb Zeira, this is the kasha test. So exactly how this kasha works is not so simple, but the case is talking about Safek mashkin l'tama. If you have a Safek of liquids, whether it makes became Tamei, right, which is really just a mashka is Safek. Every liquid is a Safek, because there's no din in the Torah. There's no pasuk that discusses whether liquids can become Tamei or not. Right? It's not beferish in the Torah. Right? So when it says, there's they bring the Rishonim here bring that there's a pasuk about mashka becoming tummy. That's making things hechsher to be makabaltum. But there's no pasuk about liquids becoming tummy. So that by it itself, a liquid, whether it's tummy or not, is by itself a Safek. So Safek mashkin litame, so it's tummy. So we say it's tummy. L'tamei heiress, but for water or liquid to go be matama something else, that we say is tar. Divi Rameir. V'chein hayi Rav Elazar, I'm a kedvar, and Rav Elazar agrees with Rameir. So then the Gemara says, "Mi svar Rav Elazar l'tamei tamei." And does Rav Elazar say that liquids can make something else tamei? V'hatani we learned in the brisa. Rav Elazar Oimer ain't tumah l'mashkin kol ikar. There is no tumah to liquid at all. Right? Teda, how do you know? Sharei Heid Yossi ben Yezer ish treda. Yossi ben Yezer ish treda said edus al ayil kamza on this type of grasshopper called ayil dachon that it's tahar. Bal mashkin dachon here means tahar. Although I think there are those that touch it as dechain, that it is yes tahar, but I don't know. But I think the real way to read is dachon. Mashkin basement and the liquid that's in the shchita house of the Beis HaMikdash is also dachan, that it's tar. Right? So meaning, you see clearly that Rav Elazar says that liquids do become tamei. Right? At least minat Torah. So then we continue. So that's all going to work according to Shmuel, the Amar. That when he says that dachan, when the liquids are tahar, what he means is that they're tahar from making anything else tamei. But the liquid itself, but the atuma liquids themselves can become tamei. So then shapir it works because Rav Elazar will say that yes, a liquid can become tamei, even though it's a Safek, but it becomes tamei. El Rav da Omar dachan mamish, but according to Rav, which means that it's mamish dachan. Michael and Meimar, what are you going to say? Right? Then according to him, Rav Elazar holds is not tamei at all, which is a Safek. So how can you say by us that Rav Elazar is saying that a Safek is not going to become tamei? So now the Gemara changes its mind. Ella, right? So now we go back. We're not saying that it's the Machlokes about the Safek of a guy making his koi hektish. That's not the Machlokes tonight. Ella ha Rabbi Yehuda of Reb Shimon. One is Rabbi Yehuda, and one is Reb Shimon. Titania. Hareini nazir and yesh bekri hazeh meya kur. So you got two bored guys sitting around, right? And as guys do, they start gambling with each other, right? They get into a machlokes. So what do? So they say, I'm going to be a nazir if there's 100 kur in this. What do you call it? In the silo or whatever it is, right? I mean, they're sitting. They say, okay, how many kur, which is a measurement? How many kur do you think is in this? So one guy says to his friend, you know what? If there's 100 there, then I'm becoming a nazir. And then they go umatzu shegana v'isha'ava. Then before they get a chance to count how much is in here, some of it gets stolen or gets lost. So now there's no way to prove if there was ever 100 there. Well, if you counted it after it was stolen and there's 100, then you know for sure there was 100, right? But if there was less than 100, you still have no idea because you know some was stolen. So that's a Safek naziris, right? So Rav Yehuda matter. Rav Yehuda says it's mutter, that he's not a nazir, right? And Rav Shimon says it's asur. So Mamela, that machlokes is the machlokes that from the Mishnah to the Brisa. Our Mishnah that says that it's Tamei, that the Safek nadir we go l'chumra is going according to Rav Shimon, and the Mishnah and the Brisa that says that a Safek nazir is Safek nadir is mutter goes according to Rabbi Yehuda. Right, fairly straightforward. So Gemara says V'rami Rabbi Yehuda, but we can ask a stira for Rabbi Yehuda to Rabbi Yehuda. Mi Rabbi Yehuda loy ma'al inish nafshel l'sfeika. Does Yehuda say that a person will not make himself a nazir on a Safek? Or a minute, I'll ask you, Stira Rabbi Yehuda, Stam Truma, right, the end of our Mishnah, Stam Truma, when a person makes a neder and he says it's going to be truma, meaning he says, I'm not going to eat this steak. That's going to be like truma to me. So be Yehuda, asura. In Yehuda, it's asur. Ubegalil, mutaris. But in Galil, away from Yerushalayim, it's mutter. Shein Anshe Galil makir nes truma salishka. Because the Anshe Galil don't recognize truma salishka, meaning the Anshe Galil, when they say truma, they mean it's regular truma, from grain, which we said does not make a neder. Because it's not asur. It's not asur to benefit from it. Right? But the Anshe Galil, I'm sorry. So the Yehuda is saying that Stam Truma and Yehuda is asur because they know that it could be referring to the Truma Salishka, which is the half shekels that everybody gives to the Beis HaMikdash. And Galil, they're not aware of it. So when in Galil, when they say it's Truma, they mean it's the Truma that Kohanim are supposed to get, which is not a good neder. All right. So the reason why in Galil, if somebody makes a neder that it's Truma, it's not a neder, even though we have no idea what the guy meant. It could be he did mean the Truma Halishka, in which case it really is a neder, but we say it's not a neder because we assume that he doesn't know about the Truma Halishka because he lives in Galil. So Tamei they in Makirin. So that's only because they don't know. On Tamei Beis now, Makirin Asurin, but mashma that if the people from Galil would know that there's such a concept of Truma Halishka, then it would be asur, even though it's a Safek. So you see that Rabbi Yehuda will make something into a neder when it's a Safek. So Amar Rava is a very interesting teretz. Amar Rava Gabi Kri, by the pile where the guys are sitting and saying, oh, if there's 100 core in this silo, then I'm going to become a nazir. Gabi Kri, Kasavar, Kol Shesveika Chomer Mivadai. Anytime a Safek is going to end up being stricter than a Vadai, loy ma'al nafshe l'sveika, then a person is not going to make himself a nazir misafek. Why? Te'ilu gabi nazir vadai megalea. Te'ilu gabi nazir vadai. Because if we're talking about a guy who becomes a definite nazir, megalechu maybe carbon renechel. He takes a haircut and then he brings a carbon and then he could eat meat and he eats the carbon. And then he goes on his merry way. But if a guy is ever a Safek nazir, he can never take a haircut. Right? Meaning a guy becomes a regular nazir. Yeah? No big deal. So he waits 30 days, he brings a carbon, shaves his head, zagazant. Right? If a guy's a Safek, he can't bring the carbon because that's bringing chulin, could be bringing chulin into the Hazara. Right? On the tzad that he's not a nazir, he's bringing in these animals that don't belong to the Beis HaMikdash, in which case that's asur. So therefore he can't bring any karbanos. Since he can't bring karbanos, he can't shave his head. So therefore he's asur forever. So in this case, it's a very interesting thing. Comes out that a Safek is actually more strict than a Vadai. Because a Vadai nazir just does his thing and he loses his nazirus. A Safek can't do it. So therefore, a Safek nazir is never going to be able to take a haircut. So therefore, we're saying that no nazir is ever going if it's a Safek, whether he has to be a nazir or not. That means he said in his head he will not becoming a Safek nazir. Right? No fellow will become a Safek nazir. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. But the truth is, when you think about it, isn't every Safek almost every Safek more strict? What are you saying?
What is the punchline? Since he could never take a haircut, then what?
Since it's such a Safek on him, right?
Yeah.
He's never, when it's a Safek whether he's going to become a nazir, that can't possibly be his intention.
Can't be his intent. Was his what?
No, meaning
he didn't know. He didn't know it was a Safek. He didn't know it was a Safek. He was sure.
No, he didn't know how much was in the.
He was sure it was more than 100.
He was just a confident fellow, but he didn't know. He's not gonna. He says, yeah, if there's 100, I'm becoming a nazir. But if you're not sure if there's 100, I'm not gonna make myself a nazir on a Safek because then I'm stuck with the naziris my whole life. Right?
I thought it's Machta no Kanya because the guy didn't think he was going to lose. He was positive he was going to win. The guy in Houston won $75 million betting on the World Series. He was sure he was going to win, and he taka won. No.
Yeah.
But that's before it was lost or damaged or stolen. He was sure beforehand.
That's exactly right. He was sure.
But not anymore.
Now it's too bad.
Now
you can't count it anymore. But he was sure when he said that out of his mouth, he was sure.
Yeah, but
he was there the day before that they had a truck bought 400 things of it. He was sure. He thought he was getting, his friend was going to have to buy him lunch tomorrow.
Right. But now,
then there was a fire and he can't prove it. No? So.
But now there's a Safek. So what do you do? Is he a nazir or not?
Yeah, well, but we're saying he's not a nazir because he doesn't know. But when he said it, he knew. He was sure.
But that's not right. That's not the Metzias now.
So what?
You're right. He was willing to make himself a nazir if he was going to be a nazir and he has a way out after 30 days. But now he's going to say, "Oh no, you meant that you're going to become a nazir even Safek." He said, "No, I didn't. I would never have agreed to that, right? Because otherwise he's stuck."
Okay.
Right. That's what I think he's saying. Now you have a different lumdish thing. Why is he a nazir the rest of his life? Because he can't bring karbanos into the Beis Hamikdash, right? Because otherwise, if it's not hektish, because he's not a nazir, so it's kachim. It's chulin. He's bringing chulin into Razor. No, so bring it with a tanai, a good old yeshiva tanai, right? Bring the animals in and say, okay, if I'm a nazir, so then it's a nazir. If it's not a nazir, so then I'm just a big donor of animals to Beis Hamikdash, right? Of course, I don't remember what.
How do you have a chatas on one hand and a shlamim on the other?
It's not right. So it's not going to work for chatas, right? It's not going to work. It'll work for the other two, the shlamim but it's not going to work for the chatas, right? But bottom line is b'di'evid, one of those karbanos allows him out of the nazirus. Okay, whatever it is, that's a tumult. But why can't you bring it out to tonight? Fine. Okay, so then, anyways, that's a test. But I think that every Safek is more chomer, right? Is every case of Safek?
Every case is chomer because we give it the dinim of both sides of the Safek. This is more chomer. Just mitzad the nazirus, it's more chomer.
I hear. Because I'm saying every time you have a Safek. No, I mean, it's not going to be worse than a vada, that's for sure. Right? It's not going to be more chomer than a vada. Here, it's going to be more chomer than a vada. That's an interesting thing, because anytime you have a Safek, even a Safek reisha is not a reisha, it's a derabanan. Bechor, right?
Well, that's Machlokes Rishonim, no?
Well, yeah, that's right. So with the Rambam, and I forgot who's
right.
According to the Rambam, it's a Safek. According to the Rambam, it's
reisha.
Every Safek reisha. No, I thought he says the Rabbanon. Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was the other way around.
It could be. Yeah. It's a Safek. It's a Safek. What the Safek is? Okay, sure. But according to some, every Safek reisha, who's the ones that said a Safek is of a reisha is l'chumra? The Rabbanon said it. So it's a Rabbanon, meaning it's a Safek reisha, but it's a Rabbanon. Right? Okay, sure. Yeah, if this was Daf Beis in the Masechta, the yeshivas would never get off it. Yeah.
This is exactly why there's no end to the Torah.
Yeah, Baruch Hashem. Fine. So Amalei Rav Huna bar Yehuda l'Rava Amar Areini Nazir Olam Mai. Okay. So now we're going to look for cases where the Safek is going to be the same din. What do we say? A Safek Nazir is stuck being a Nazir the rest of his life because he can't bring the karbanos. Okay, but maybe there is such a thing as a Vadai Nazir also that's equal. A guy says he's a Nazir for the rest of his life. So he's the same. He's the same as a Safek Nazir, Samai. So then what would be if he's Mesupik? Let's say the guy says about the Kri, about the pile in the silo. He says, if there's 100 kur, I'm a Nazir for the rest of my life. Right? Now, that's going to be the same din as the Safek. The Safek is no stronger than that because we said a Safek has to be the nazir for the rest of his life. And here the guy also said he's going to be a nazir for the rest of his life. So they're equal. So maybe in that case, a Safek would have to become a nazir because it's no stricter Safek than regular nazir. So Amalei, nazir olam nami. No, there's an opt-out clause for a nazir olam. So even somebody who makes himself a nazir forever, Sfeikoi, Chomer mivadai, a Safek is still stricter than vadai. Why? The ilu vadai, somebody who became a nazir for the rest of his life, hichbid sairoi, mekel basar, who maybe shalosh behemoths. There's a heter that if a guy makes himself a nazir the rest of his life, but his hair gets very heavy, that's a literal translation, meaning he really needs a haircut, he could bring 3 karbonas, and he could knock off the hair with a razor, right? Which is a heter, which we'll see in Nazir Bez Hashem, for this type of situation, right? Which, the cynic in me says, see, you got a guy makes himself a Nazir, and then we make a special dispensation for him to take it easy. Safek Nazir can't do it because he can't bring the karbonas. This guy has to bring the karbonas, and then he's still a Nazir, but he brings the 3 karbonas, and then he could trim his hair. Exactly how much of his hair, I don't know, but he could take some form of haircut. A Safek can't do it because he can't bring the karbonas. What? It doesn't help for the previous nazirs. Naftali wants to make the guy a new nazir, the Safek make him into a new nazir, bring his karbonas, and then he could take a haircut. But I don't think that works because he still has to take care of his Safek nazir from the previous nazir. Right? Yeah. Right?
Does
so
either way work? Halacha l'maisa, does it work?
I think. Why not? I mean, that's what the Gemara says.
To do. Isn't that why there's different Gersois in Erev Rosh Hashanah? Va'afilu kinazir Shimshon?
Yeah, but it's also to do 30 days. Right?
No, but bechor, even back then it was also to do kinazir Shimshon. Naziris Eilim is also to take on because it's impossible to keep.
Right.
And when did it stop and you want to do something else?
Well,
what do you mean?
Bunch of Gemara.
Yeah, okay.
I think just because it's us, it doesn't mean someone's not going to do it.
Yeah.
No, but I think Lamai. Okay, I don't know. I thought Lamaisa doesn't work. It's not Chal because it's us to do.
Well, we'll see when we do it in Nazir. It's in the beginning of Nazir. Yeah. Either way, so the Gemara is saying.
Would they also give him an exception for burying a krova, like for becoming Tamei Mace?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
So they're giving an exception to cut his hair because it's heavy, but
right, but not for a relative. I don't know. I think
which is a mitzvah.
Correct. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't know. Yeah, I guess we'll see Bez Hashem and Nazir. Either way, so the Gemara is saying, but a Safek can't take a haircut. There's no dispensation for a Safek to take a haircut. Fine, so then that's not a comparison. Amar Hareini Nazir Shimshon Mai. What happens if he says he's a Nazir Shimshon? Right? So Nazir Shimshon only has to take on 2 of the naziris. He can't cut his hair and he can't drink wine. But he's allowed to become Tamei. But a Nazir Shimshon is for the rest of his life. Right? So what about him? He's the equivalent of a Safek. Right? So theoretically, you could have somebody who says, if there's 100 kur in this silo, I'm becoming a Nazir Shimshon. Right? And then he's the same as a Safek. So Amalei, and this is an interesting give and take right here. Amalei Nazir Shimshon loitanya. It doesn't say it in the Brisa. Right? When Rabbi Yehuda said his din, when he died? What?
How old was Shimshon when he died?
I have no idea. I mean, it should only go till that age.
Right. Yeah, no.
I don't know. I don't know. We'll have to see.
What did Shimshon's naziris have to do with length of time? It had nothing to do with how long he lived.
Who told you that? Who told you that? He wasn't a she. It wasn't a nazir after he was dead, was he?
Well,
so if the person who makes Nazir Shimshon can pull down on
maybe the guy means 30.
Then maybe
Maybe the guy means 37 years. He's 37 years. Let's say he's 26 and Shimshon died when he was 72. So that's how long the guy meant. You have all these other cases. So why does this case mean that for 400 years? Who told you that? Like, why do you think that? Why would you think that? You want to be as long as Shimshon was, no? What's the big problem?
I hear. And Gershon's not liking that kasha.
No.
I hear
I don't like Gershon's onion dip. So what? What's the difference if he likes it or not? I don't care if he likes it.
As long as you like his Yerushalmi kugel.
That's true.
I hear the schnitzel's good.
That's true.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, I hear the horror. But okay, but he says a different teretz, which is, he says Nazir Shimshon, it doesn't say it in the Brisa. It just doesn't say it. Right? Okay, so it doesn't say it. It's not a kasha. Right? Samalei, Vomar Rabada Barava Tanya Nazir Shimshon. Rabada did learn Nazir Shimshon. So he says, Amalei, Tanya. Okay, so if he learned it, he learned it. Okay, I'm not sure what went on over there. What? It's almost like, well, it's not a switch, but it's almost like, okay, yeah, I have a Brisa that he says it. Okay, fine. If he says it, he says it. What do you want me to do? Okay, we move on, right? We move on. It's an interesting shakavatari over there. Fine. Rav Ashi has a different teretz. Rav Ashi Omar, Ahi Rabbi Yehuda Mishum Reb Tarfan. Rabbi Yehuda is going like Reb Tarfan, which we had once before. The Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Mishum Reb Tarfan. Rabbi Yehuda said the name of Reb Tarfan. Ein echad me'am nazir. None of them are nazir. Why? Naziris is only given. Hafla literally means for clarity or something. Yeah, I think that's the way you touch it. Meaning when a person only becomes a nazir doesn't work unless there's a definitive naziris that's going on over here. Right? And since they're making a nazir based on a kri, on how much is in the pile, that's not a legitimate way of becoming. A guy comes to nazir, says, I am a nazir for the next 30 days. Saying it based on something else that you don't know, that's not considered a clear way of becoming a nazir. The case that they're talking about is if you see a guy walking by and they make a bet with each other, I bet you that guy's a nazir. And the other guy says, well, if he's a nazir, I'm going to be a nazir. So Reb Tarfon holds that that's not a nazir. You can't become a nazir like that because it's not definitive. So here too, the guy is not, you can't bring a kasha, a raya from the nazir with the pile because there's nothing definitive. So that's why he's not a nazir.
But when he says it twice, that we understand what he's saying it, and that's clear.
No, but it's at least he made himself a nazir. He made himself a here. He's making his naziris based on something else. So there's no clarity. So therefore he's not. So then the question is, why in that case of the pile, right? They're both sitting there. And he says, if there's 100 core, I'm a nazir. And we're saying that's not a nazir because we don't know if there's 100 core. But then what's the case in the Brisa? That he says, so if it got stolen or lost, so then it's a Safek. He's not a nazir. What does that stolen or lost? If you're saying you go like Rav Tarfon, he's not a nazir because he's not a nazir. He didn't meet the qualifications of becoming a nazir because it's missing clarity, right? It has nothing to do with it being stolen, right? So why are you saying that it got stolen or got lost? That has nothing to do with anything. So our answer is no, it does. No, the reason why it's saying it got lost or stolen, it's to teach us the koyach of Reb Shimon, the nigna v'sha'avad, that even though it got stolen or it got lost, still Reb Shimon holds that the guy is a nazir, because Reb Shimon holds so strongly that a person, when he makes himself a nazir, he's including, even if it's a Safek, the situation is a Safek situation, and he holds that so strong that even if the guy, meaning we never knew if there was 100 kur in this pile in the first place. And he's saying, and even if there was, maybe it got stolen, still Reb Shimon says the guy's a nazir, all based on Safek. So that's why he said it. But really, according to Rabbi Yehuda, didn't have to say it, because according to Rabbi Yehuda, he wasn't a nazir from the beginning because there was never any clarity. Because since nobody knew how much grain was in there, so it doesn't work. Fine. Rabbi Yehuda, at the end of the Mishnah, so Rabbi Yehuda said, Stam Truma Rabbi Yehuda. If somebody says Truma, so in Yehuda, it's going to be a neder, but in the Galil, it's going to be mutter because they don't know anything about the Shumas Halishka. Which means that in the Daf Yomi, they probably skipped Masechta Shkolim and the Yerushalmi. Otherwise, they would know about it, right, in the Galil, I would think. Or they just didn't go to school. I don't know. I don't know what that means in Galil. They don't know what Shumas Halishka. They didn't give the Masas HaShekel in Galil. I don't know. Chalk it up to the I don't know section. Or just too simple a question that it's got to be, there's an obvious answer, but I'm not aware. So Gemara says, Hamakirin Asur, it's mashma, that if they were educated, then it would be Asur. But again, it's a Safek because we don't know what the guy meant. But if they're educated, then we're going to say that it's going to become a neder. Alma Sfeika L'chumra. So you see that we do go with Sfeika L'chumra. So Gemara says, if that's the case, Ema Seifa, what about the Seifa? Stam Charamim, right? So we said Cherem could either mean Cherem to the Beis HaMikdash, or it could be Cherem to the Kohanim, that you're using it to support the Kohanim. If it's Cherem to the Beis HaMikdash, then that's a good neder. If he's saying Cherem to Kohanim just to support them, then it's not a good neder. Ema Seifa, Stam Charamim Yehuda, Mutar, and then a Mutar, Uba Galil, Asurin, and in Galil Asur. Why? Shein Anshe Galil Makirin is Tamei Kohanim. The people from Galil don't recognize the Cherem of Kohanim. They're not aware that there's such a thing as making something Cherem, and that's meant to be given to support the Kohanim, not to do with the Mikdash. Mashma Hamakirin Mutarin. If they would recognize that there be such a thing as giving to Kohanim, then it would be mutter. Because it's not something that's usher to make a neder with. Amos Sfeika L'kula. So you say it's a Safek L'kula. So great. So now we have a stira at the end of the Mishnah. What?
Why is that a stira? The first one's a Safek whether it is something or not. The second one, the Safek is if it's a cherem for Lashem or cherem L'koyin.
No, meaning
it's L'chumra.
Why?
Because it's a different kind of Safek.
Yeah, but it's all totally in whether these people are made aware of what they don't normally know of, right?
Yeah, but if the first one is if they don't know of it at all, if they don't know X, right, then they can't possibly be saying X because they don't know X.
Yeah,
really, you have to go L'kula because the meaning it's meaningless. What they're saying is meaningless. But the second one is a Safek whether they know X or Y. So you're saying, okay, so they don't know X, so they mean Y. But if they do know X, they mean X.
No, we don't know. But we still don't know. We're just going to go L'chumra. We don't know what they mean, but we're going to go L'chumra. We still don't know. It's just a Safek. Again, the guy said Truma, or he said Cherem. We have no idea what he means. So we're saying depending on your geographical location, that's going to be whether we can assume what you intended. Mashma, that if you had more knowledge than everybody else in your geographical location, then we would be weiter, we would go and we'd be machma. So that's
it wouldn't be a Safek.
Safek is l'chumra. Right.
Why is that a Safek though? Are you saying that in Yehuda it's a Safek?
The guy
in Yehuda is it a Safek?
Yeah. He does.
So why don't you bring a raya from Yehuda? Bring a raya from Yehuda. What do you need Galil for?
That's what we have, a stira from Yehuda to Galil, no?
No, we have a steer from Galil to Galil.
Meaning the diuk to be made by these people's geographical locations it's a stira.
I don't need the reisha. All I need is the siefa.
Why?
Because the siefa I have Yehuda and Galil. And the Safek is whether it's Lashem or L'koyin.
Correct.
So in Yehuda, what happens? Yehuda mutar and we go Lasurin. Yehuda it's mutar because we say it's L'koyin.
Correct.
It's a Safek.
But it's a Safek.
So why don't you bring a kasha from that? What do you need Hamakirin
for? Because there we don't even, it's a Safek, but we don't look at it like a Safek because we don't even assume that the guy had the other one in mind. It just doesn't happen.
So why wouldn't we say the same thing for Galil? If the guy knows, that's what he means. It's not a Safek.
No, but that's what it says, that it is a Safek.
But it doesn't say it's a Safek.
Yes, it does.
It just says Hamakirin Mutarin.
Right, because it's a Safek.
It's the same as Yehuda. If Yehuda's not a Safek, Gol's not a Safek.
But they're both Svekas.
But Yehuda would not treat him like a Safek.
How did I know we were 3 lines from the end? How did I know?
Yeah. So, anyways, okay. Bottom line is Gershon's question notwithstanding. Yeah. The Gemara seems to be saying that the assumption is that Galil and Yehuda have different understandings of what the word Chera means or what the word Truma means. But mashma, that if they had an understanding of the other locations, then we'd be, in the reisha, it sounds like we'd be machmer, and in the siefa, it sounds like we'd be bechor. So we have a stira, because both of them are safek. So why in the reisha are we going with, we're not, again, the Safek is we don't know what the guy's intention was when he said Truma or Chera. And in the siefa, we don't know what the guy's intention is, but in the siefa, we go l'chumah. So it's a kasha, which way Safek goes. That's the basic understanding of the Gemara's kasha. So Amar Abaya's answer is siefa. He says a very pashut answer. Siefa Rabbi Elazar ben Tzadok. He says the siefa is a different Tana. The first Tana holds a Safek is l'chumra, and the siefa is going according to Rabbi Elazar ben Tzadok, who holds that a Safek is mekel. The Tanya of Yehuda, Stam Truma be Yehuda Asura. If somebody said a nadir that something is Truma and Yehuda, it's also because the assumption is it's Truma Salishka, that it's going to the base of Mikdash. No, Stam Cheremim be Galil Asur. It's Stam Cherem and Galil is Asur, because they don't know anything about Cherem to Kahana, right? But if he would have done it in Yehuda, he would say that it's no good because it's a Safek nadir, and he holds a Safek nadir doesn't work, right? So that's basically what we're saying is the reisha and the siefa are two different opinions. Fine. Okay, we'll stop over here. If anybody wants to tune in for Gershon's kasha, they're welcome to tune in. All right. Gershon wants to tell the fine night. Yeah, Gershon, I got to go to Ma'ariv, so we got 4 minutes to fight this out.
It's all good. I think I figured it out.
The question is, did I figure it out? Now you made me confused.
I think I'm understanding Rabbi Elazar ben Tzadok differently than you.
Oh, that could be. I think
he's saying that there's no hamakirin, there's no diuk. The point is that stam charam and begalil is asur, even if he knows about it. Even if he knows that there's charam and lekuna, it's still asurin, it's still akdish, because that lashon and galil is the like lashon that everyone uses.
It's not mashma like that from the Ran. No?
Yeah, it's not like the Ran.
Right. What? Well, I gotta go to Myra first.
While he's looking that up, what was the maybe psak? Maybe yes, maybe no, maybe.
Maybe psak about what?
My question.
I don't even remember.
I should go to the thing.
No, I don't. Maybe. Maybe. I'm not sure. I don't know what you're going to gain out of it.
All right. So
It's the finance. It's the finance arm.
Yeah, it's the big shot. It's the people who need to stay in the Trump, not in the
Correct.
shared.
The people that are in the finance of Torah Masorah get the big fancy getaway. The